Imagine being 12 years old, already having 30 bone fractures, and wondering, why can't I just play like other kids? I'm Leanne, and I was diagnosed with brittle bones disease. Now, I'm running the Bank of America Chicago Marathon for Lurie Children's, so every kid can just be a kid.
Join Bank of America in supporting Leanne's cause. Give if you can at BofA.com/supportLeanne. What would you like the power to do? Bank of America. References to charitable organizations is not an endorsement by Bank of America Corporation.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
In 1999, director Sam Mendes and star Kevin Spacey gave the world a deeply satirical look at the corporatized shell of 90s suburbia.
In 2025, we drink a whiskey that begs the question, do you like getting nailed by the king?
The film is American Beauty.
The whiskey is Crown Royal. Do you get it? Do you get it, Brad?
You know, it took me a minute, Bob. I think I finally understood the reference. Guys, this is the Film and Whiskey Podcast.
Welcome to the Film and Whiskey Podcast, where each week we review a classic movie and a glass of whiskey. I'm Bob Book.
I'm Brad G.
And before we go any further in talking about this 1999 Best Picture winner, we've got a big announcement, Film and Whiskey Nation. Brad, this is your news to share. The floor is yours, sir. You can say whatever you want, but ideally, the big news.
My wife and I have had our third child, baby. Let's go.
Congratulations, sir. Brad is a dad times three.
Three girls.
You know, I couldn't be happier for you, man. This is literally the first time we've talked since you had a baby. I was like, save it for the pod. I don't even want to hear how this baby's doing.
I don't want to be like that guy, but like since my wife had the baby, Bob, sure. I, in fact, this is getting into a realm that we don't need to get into, but my wife is filling out the all the information of like social security card and mom and this and that. And it asked for the birthing person's gender. And it gave her the male and female option. And she goes, man, that head was way too big to fit out of a penis.
And that'll do it for us this week, folks. Thank you for joining us on the Film and Whiskey Podcast. No, Brad, it's good to have you back. I can already tell how sleep deprived you are because that story would not have made it out in any other episode. But welcome in to Film and Whiskey. In order to balance out Brad and his insane takes today, we have brought along a guest who is joining us for probably, the fourth or fifth time now. It's our friend Noah Gittell. Noah, how are you, man?
Guys, we've met before, but something tells me you're going to remember me this time.
Ooh, let's go.
Do you have any huge announcements that could potentially get us canceled, or just the one today?
I still do not have any children.
Okay, that's good. to your knowledge. Yeah, I get it, man. Noah, it's really good to have you back on the show, man. Since last time we spoke, I have been plugging Baseball, the movie, everywhere I can possibly think to. I was actually a guest on another unrelated podcast for work. And the guy was like, we always ask people for a book recommendation. And I was like, Noah Gittell, baby. Pick up Baseball, the movie. So free promo here for you, my friend. It's a good book. And now that the Cleveland baseball season is over, it's the only baseball I'm going to get for like 9 months, Brad.
Yeah.
Well,
No
if
fun.
you read the chapter on Major League, it does end with that very sentiment that they will lose and you will go watch Major League to make yourself feel better. So, tonight's the night, guys. Yeah.
That's for sure, man.
Honestly, that's not a bad
chaser.
idea, man.
What a great double feature pairing with American Beauty. Nothing goes better than those two classics of American cinema. Guys, I want to jump right in today talking about American Beauty. Obviously, this is a movie that we watched way back in season 1. And folks, if you are new to the podcast, welcome into Film and Whiskey. Each week, we review a classic movie and a new glass of whiskey. This season, we are going back to all the films we reviewed in our very first season and asking ourselves if they held up. And we have finally arrived at one of the more controversial films in our season 1 lineup. Controversial a little bit because of the subject matter. I think in the age of cancel culture, this movie it's not even really taken on its own terms so much anymore. It's more controversial because of who's in it now. And I think that we're going to have to get into that, Brad.
Thora Birch, all of her controversy.
She's the worst. Am I right? As we get into the movie, I have to ask you, Brad, had you watched this movie in the interim between season 1 and season 10?
Bob, this is a very rare answer to that question. Yes, I have.
Really?
I made my two best friends sit down and watch it, and they felt very uncomfortable, and they liked it a lot.
That's like, hey guys, I need you to flank me on both sides of this couch, like Allison Janney and Wes Bentley on either side of Chris Cooper.
Can you just
as
hold
we watch
me
this movie?
as I watch this film?
Noah, I'm going to throw this over to you, man. We gave you a list of movies to choose from, and this was, I think you gave us a couple options, but you were like, I will for sure join you for American Beauty if no one has signed up for that. So my first question to you, what the hell, man?
It's my favorite movie of all time. No, and it's not. No.
Come on. Why?
No, because I like digging into the thorny ones, this was a movie, like a lot of people, I loved it when it first came out. And then I saw the critical reappraisal of it where literally there are dozens of articles written by esteemed film critics saying this is the movie I have turned the most on over the years from my original opinion. And that really interests me, as somebody who likes to look at movies through the lens of what were the values of the country and Hollywood when it came out versus now. Those are the discussions that interest me the most. So I thought it'd be a fun one to dig into, a difficult one to dig into. And I'm not really doing film criticism anymore, so I can't get canceled. So I thought I was the perfect person to do this.
There you go.
Beautiful.
You just cancel others vicariously. You come on our show to get us canceled now. Well, guys, if we're going down together here. Brad, I think that it's a perfect time to segue into our first segment of the day, which we call Brad Explains.
Brad's gonna give us the movie plot with only 60 seconds ticking on the clock. So let's go ahead and hear your take with this little segment that we call Brad Explains.
Brad Explains is the part of the show where Brad breaks down the plot of the film that he has just seen, often for the first time. Obviously, it is Brad's at least third time seeing this movie now. Brad, I gotta ask you, man, anything different jump out to you this time through, or has this movie been kind of consistent in how you've viewed it and thought about it?
I found myself this time through really intrigued by following kind of the thread of Ricky being the most mature human being in the film. That for whatever reason, that just frustrated me and was fascinating to me all at the same time. And it feels like this artistic sense of it's the people who feel the world that understand the world that I'm I don't know if that sticks for all of Sam Mendes' films or if that's an Alan Ball, type of thing. But that was what I found myself focused on most. I also was as I was preparing for this specific segment, I was there's a weirdly large amount of things that happen in this movie. Mm-hmm. I think that was my biggest takeaway this third time through watching American Beauty. I was I forgot how much happens. And it's a pretty clean 2-hour film. Like, it's not like we're hitting 230, 240. Like, you're in, you're out, and yet thing after thing, and like there's like 6 different character arcs and storylines happening, and they all operate with each other differently, and they all draw different things out of each other. I had forgotten how much of a web this movie really is.
Yeah, it gets a little convoluted towards the end of the film, and I think some would say contrived. And I'm sure we'll talk about the way that all of these storylines end up intersecting each other and overlapping each other. But in order to do that, Brad, you've got to spoil this movie. So, folks, if you have not seen this 25-plus-year-old film now, hit pause here. I would recommend go watch American Beauty. I think it's a worthwhile watch. Come back and join us for the rest of the episode. But, Brad, you have 1 minute to break down the plot of this film. And go.
American Beauty is a film that follows Lester Burnham as the main character and his family as they try to figure out what it means to be authentic and real in a world that has convinced them that pursuing all of these exterior things are important. Lester finds himself enamored with one of his daughter's high school friends, and is regularly fantasizing about her. His wife is trying to make it as a real estate agent and keep perfection as like her goal in life, and ends up having an affair with one of the other real estate people in town. His daughter ends up dating their new neighbor, who is a pot selling, in kind of introverted, artistically minded person. And her friend, who her dad wants to sleep with, is obsessed with being a model and being wanted and attractive and all these things. And Chris Cooper is in the closet farther than any human being you could have ever imagined. And at the end of the day, he shoots Kevin Spacey because he's gay.
He sure does. That's the reason. Very concisely. I like that there was nothing concise about that, Brad explains, until the reason for the murder. And then it was like, yeah, it's because he's gay.
I felt the clock pushing up against me. I didn't have much time left, Bob.
Oh, man. All right, guys. I think that, there's some, to Noah's point, there's some thorny places we can go with this discussion. I think I want to zoom out a little bit and kind of contextualize the movie. And that's why I appreciate Noah being here, because there's a lot of context to add to the movie. I think the first place I'd like to start is kind of focusing in on where does this land on the spectrum of satire? And it's partially because I've had one battle after another on the brain for the last week or so. Noah, I know you saw the movie and loved it. I saw the movie and I am one of the 5 people that it did not fully work for. And I think it's because they didn't quite nail the tone that the movie needed. And I've been thinking about the different types of satire that we've seen throughout the years. You've got your complete farces like a Dr. Strangelove. You've got things where the world feels kind of askew and absurdist, like a la Coen Brothers movies, I think are really good at that. And then I think One Battle After Another was kind of that Catch-22 type, elevated, winking, witty. There's just something a little bit off about the world, but it's not enough to really be farcical. And then you've got a movie like American Beauty, which I feel like is even more conservative in the way that it shows the absurdities of the world. It's more just that everyone's kind of snide and sarcastic, and there's some good punchlines, but the world itself is very, very similar to what you see in reality. And I think a good maybe touch point is a movie like Office Space, which I think comes out the same year as this movie. And Office Space just goes maybe one step further into the comedy realm. But I'm wondering, Brad, to your point, and Noah, to you, you guys have both talked about this being a satire already. And so, do you see it in that sort of legacy of satires, and where would you kind of locate it on that spectrum?
Well, I think it has satirical elements, but I think So a big problem for me with satires is when they try to also be sentimental at the same time. Like, those two things are oil and water for me, because satire requires some emotional detachment. Like, that's the only way satire really works, is if you are not fully engaged and sympathizing with these characters, if you're looking at them from askew, if you're laughing at them. And to try to bring in this emotionality that Sam Mendes and Alan Ball bring to American Beauty is really when it loses me, I have to say. And I think, Brad talked about how much, I have a lot more to say about that, but for the purposes of this question, Brad talked about how much stuff there was in this movie. It's not just plot, it's tone. I mean, this is a satire. It is a domestic drama. It's sort of a mystery. They framed the whole thing as a who killed Lester Burnham kind of thing. I mean, from the very beginning, from the first scene of the movie. And if I had a note for the script early on, it would be like, let's just be one thing. And maybe that would be your note for One Battle After Another as well, because that's a lot of movie at the same time. But I think American Beauty works at its best when it is satire, when it is funny, and a lot less well when it takes itself seriously.
It works well in the moments where, like, Kevin Spacey, like, just looks at the camera and goes, and just like the little head tilt before he throws the asparagus plate, like, oh, it freaking works, dude.
Spacey does this thing at multiple points in the movie. I think it's the asparagus scene, and there's a couple others, like when he hands the bag of fast food out the window, where he does like a bobblehead effect as he does it, like his head is attached to his arm doing it, and it's real slight and subtle, and it's just so freaking good, man. It's a really, I don't mean to bleed into the performances here too much, but part of the reason that I think the movie ultimately succeeds is that the performances are so committed. And while they are like a touch heightened, they never seem like they're in a different movie from each other, or like characters who exist in a world that's not being portrayed here. Like, I think my gripe about this the first time we watched it, Brad, was Annette Bening's character, because she is so heightened throughout the movie. But then I watched it this time and I was like, Annette Bening freaking kills it. She's so good in this movie, because, maybe it's just that I've gotten older. When you see people who are fake to their core, like she is, and so deeply driven by those insecurities, I wonder to myself sometimes, like, what are those people like behind closed doors? And it turns out they're exactly like that. That's just how they are, And I think that she does a great job of portraying that. I say all that to say, I think that the tone the movie is going for, it really is a balancing act, to Noah's point. And whether it succeeds or not, I think falls on the script a lot more than it falls on the actors, because I really don't have a lot of notes on the performances here.
Yeah, I mean, to speak to Annette Bening a little bit, like, dude, that moment where she pushes herself up against the window with the shutters and she starts slapping herself because she didn't sell the house, and you're just like, oh yeah, like this is just her childhood playing over and over and over again. She freaking nails her part. And I would say across the board, I think even the younger actors in this film really, really do an incredible job of bringing to life this world that, no, I would agree with you. It's just exaggerated enough that it feels like you don't quite know what Mendes is always going for. But man, the performances across the board, it makes sense to me why it won a lot of Academy Awards.
Whose performance really popped to me this time around was Mina Suvari's. Like, I thought she is like genuinely great in this movie. She brings so much depth to that character that, like, the first time you watch it, you don't really see, and you see her breakdown at the end. But when you watch it, knowing like what her secret is, I think, that character could have been a stock character. It could have been a caricature in a lot of ways. But she really brought a lot to it. I was very impressed with her.
It sounds like we're moving into the performances here, because we've talked about like three people already. But I think I'll start it off this way. I'll give my mean guy take. The only bad performance in this movie, or the only actor who I felt had incredibly limited range was Thora Birch as the daughter. I thought that every line reading was very, very bad. And the moments of hers that worked are when she doesn't have any lines and she gets to like show complex emotion on her face. But you know, Brad, I think when we talked about this the last time, you had brought up Wes Bentley as a guy that you were like, man, what a boring guy, what a boring character. And this time watching him, the entire movie hinges on that plastic bag scene, which has been parodied to death. And people who are not fans of this movie pillory that scene. Again, I think any fault people might have with the movie is on the writing, which is sometimes seen as overwrought. But to be able to put a camera on this guy's face and have him tell a story about a plastic bag dancing with him and revealing the face of God, and he's choking up, crying about how much beauty there is in the world, it freaking worked for me, man. And it worked because the performance was so committed and the performance was so authentic. It felt like I was looking into that guy's real inner thoughts as he gave that speech. As silly as that speech might be, it worked for me, Brad.
Yeah, I'm with you, dude. This time through, I found myself so drawn in by his character and his characterization of it, that his ability to think deeply about the world, his ability to use his attention well. And I think that's like, you know, the key element of his character. Mendes is always drawing our attention to the way he pays attention to the world through his use of videotaping everything. And when you look at every single other character in the film, all of their attention is on the wrong thing constantly. And it seems like, you know, Ricky is the hero of our story because he has the ability to pay attention to the things that matter. And Thora Birch is kind of slowly coming along that way with him. And everybody else is just spiraling out into their own bits of chaos because of their inability to pay attention to the things that matter.
Yeah.
I'm listening to you guys talk about this, and I'm a little distracted because I don't know when it's the right time for me to say, I think this movie's pretty bad.
No, Noah. No.
No.
All right, you're out of here. We're kicking you out, man.
Well, I can't let this keep going without me saying that, because I do think there are some good performances, although I think even some of the good performances are kind of in the wrong movie in some ways. And you know, when this movie came out, there were a lot of movies at this time about guys who work in offices. You mentioned one of them before, who are so miserable that the only way they can survive is to sort of develop an alternative personality. And in Office Space, he gets hypnotized. And in The Matrix, you know, he goes into The Matrix. And in Fight Club, he becomes Tyler Durden. And in this movie, you know, Kevin Spacey transforms into this other guy, basically. It is sort of like he becomes Tyler Durden in a way, right? But the difference between those movies and this movie is that this movie does not understand how, like, inherently juvenile and contemptible that character is. Like in those other movies, we're not supposed to think these are great guys, you know. Like, and in this movie, I don't know exactly what it is, because I don't think it's fair to say that he's the hero of the movie. But I do think the movie is aligned with him too much. I think the movie sees these events through his eyes to a degree that sort of implicates him as our de facto hero, even though I agree with what you're saying, that the Ricky Fitz character is actually like the film's, you know, moral center in a way. But I don't know if it's Kevin Spacey's kind of sitcom-y performance or if it's the script, which, you know, I found it problematic the way that it really blames Annette Bening's character, Carolyn, for their marital problems so much more than it does Lester. So many scenes where it's like, oh, if she could only loosen up, you know, everything would be okay.
Sure.
But throughout the film, I felt like they misunderstand this character. They misunderstand how much we're going to dislike him for trying to fuck a 16-year-old, pardon my language. And they misunderstand the fact that he's just a little jerk, you know? Yeah. And I know there's more to it than that. And straight white middle-class men have problems too. But it really was a core fundamental problem for me in the movie.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. First of all, you should still be doing film criticism, because that, I think, was perhaps the clearest delineation of why the movie doesn't work. One of my big complaints about the backlash to this movie is that a lot of it just seems like film Twitter backlash. Like it doesn't have a lot of substance, and it's just become like American Beauty sucks, so we don't like it. And it becomes an echo chamber where there's really no reckoning with the film itself. So thank you for that. I think that, to your point, the thing that caught me this time around was I had to remove myself quite a few times from the movie and ask myself, like, am I imposing 2025 woke goggles on my reading of this movie too much? Because in 1999, a lot of the things that were happening are objectively not okay, but audiences were at least willing to see it through to the end. Whereas I think now in 2025, a lot of it's like, he's a predator, click, movie's off, you know? And Kevin Spacey's personal life certainly has not helped that argument at all. I do think that at the end of this movie, when he's about to sleep with Mina Suvari's character, and, you know, she says, this is my first time, and it snaps him back to reality in a really dramatic and profound way. And he covers her in a blanket, and she starts crying and says, I feel so stupid. And he gives her a hug, and she says, I'm sorry. And then he says, you don't have anything to be sorry about. And then they cut to the next scene. And I was like, you should be sorry. You're a 42-year-old man. Why are you not? You're taking no blame for any of this situation that you have caused. What are you doing, man? So I do find that there's definitely points where they let Lester off the hook in a way that the other characters don't get off the hook, but also the other characters don't get shot in the head. So, I mean, it kind of balances out.
I was about to say, not getting off the hook would also include not being dead at the end of the film. Like,
sure. I don't know about that. I mean, in a sense, you're correct, but in another sense, the guy dies with a smile on his face, and we're listening to him talk at the beginning and the end of the movie. He gets the voiceover. He's fine. He does. Wherever he is, he seems very, very happy and at peace.
So no, what I hear you saying is, as long as you get to do a voiceover about your life from whatever your afterlife is, you're happy.
How bad could it be? Yeah.
Right. I want to go back to something Noah was talking about before, and it's the 1999 of it all. So 1999, obviously being regarded as one of the best years for movies ever. I think people like to look at the Oscars Best Picture lineup and poo-poo it, because you've got movies like The Green Mile, which I love that movie. I know that it's not a film Twitter favorite. The Cider House Rules, objectively, I hate that. That movie sucked, bro. But then, you know, you've got movies left out, like A Fight Club, like The Matrix, and on down the list. And so this movie kind of catches all of the heat because it won Best Picture. You know, it's like a Forrest Gump situation. Like Forrest Gump beats Shawshank and Pulp Fiction and Quiz Show. And so it's like, now we hate Forrest Gump.
Sometimes the worst thing that can happen to a movie's reputation is winning Best Picture. You know, this movie
100%, man.
I don't know that people would like it if it didn't win, but I do know it wouldn't have the target on its back that it has had since then.
Noah, you are only a few years older than us, so I don't mean to make you like the resident old guy on the podcast here. But you were much more aware of what was going on in the world in 1999 than Brad and I were at age 9. So I want to ask a little bit about, the cultural political climate as well, because there's a reason that all of these like angry white guy movies are getting made in 1999. And I also think that we have to situate this kind of satirical movie among the other satires that are coming out. Like a Fight Club is a satire. Like, it's not super funny, but it's a satire. And Office Space is obviously a satire. You look at a movie that comes out like a year before this, Primary Colors, which is just lampooning the Clinton administration and all of his scandals. Like, there's a lot of comedy happening that is really trying to skewer the American cultural moment. And I'm just kind of wondering, like, is that lost today when we look back on American Beauty?
It's hard for me to answer as somebody. Well, so I was 19 when this movie came out, so I wasn't so clued into like what adults were really seeing in the world at the time. I was more into smoking pot every day and playing NBA 2K on my
Sure.
I think it was Sega Dreamcast, maybe. But I mean, I think, look, these were the first Gen X movies really that were being made at this time. But Gen X filmmakers were getting their shot to tell their story. And what they wanted to talk about was their ineffectual fathers on some level. Like, that's a big, big thread running through these movies. They definitely want to talk about the fact that they didn't want to work for the man. They didn't want to sell out. That's what these movies were about too. You could throw Reality Bites in the mix, which is sort of like the ultimate Gen X movie. It came out a few years earlier. But I think they really kind of tell us who they are. I don't know if they tell us like what was happening in the country, although there were sex scandals at this time for sure. And this movie, Primary Colors is a weird one because I see that movie as not exactly a defense of what Clinton did, but there's this sense that like, hey, it's politics, stuff happens, man, and it's just a big circus and you got to roll with it, which, I think Mike Nichols is probably talking about his time in Hollywood more than politics when he makes that movie, but that's the idea. So I don't think any of these movies were really willing to look at what was happening to young women at this time. And I don't think America was either. When I look back at the Lewinsky scandal, I was a kid then. I didn't really know what was going on, but I think it's atrocious. Like, I don't want to get too political, but I think it's atrocious the way the Democratic Party, the party supposedly of women, like covered for Bill Clinton and made excuses for him and everything. So I don't think we as a culture were really ready to look at that. And I think, this generation, I mean, these guys, Sam Mendes was probably like, 30 years old or something when he made this movie. But all these guys were young guys and they were espousing an inherently kind of juvenile point of view. And I don't mean juvenile as an insult. I mean, they were young and they were saying, you know what, I don't want to work in an office. I want to rock and roll all night and party every day. And that's really what this movie and these movies as a whole are about. Nothing more complicated than that.
I was going to say, it seems to me, this being a third time through for American Beauty, there's not much judgment on anybody. Like, no. It doesn't seem to me like Mendes has a position of trying to make a deep statement about the world. It just seems like it's kind of like, yeah, there's just shitheads all around you in the world. And we should expect them to be that way. And I think that the reason I say that is the way the film treats Lester's obsession with this 16-year-old is like, yeah, that's just what a 42-year-old emasculated guy would do. And that's just normal. And you're like, that is not normal. Like, that is something that hopefully as a society we are moving beyond, to think that it's just normal that a 42-year-old, it's one thing to be a 42-year-old dad and go, wow, that high school girl that is friends with my daughter is pretty, and then move on with his life and never think about it again. It's another thing to just act like it's normal for what Lester is doing throughout the film. And it seems like you see that for a lot of the characters. Like, even for her, it doesn't feel like there's a lot of judgment for Angela's character that she wants to sleep around to get to the top.
See, when I watch this movie, like it recalls, I'm sure intentionally, Lolita in a lot of ways, right? But Lolita is a satire. Like, that is a dark satire. You do not think either of these men are good guys at all. But this movie, they try to kind of take that idea and cram it into something a little more sitcom-y. And that's really what I think doesn't work about it for me. Like, that could be very provocative if you wanted to make something truly avant-garde and say, like, look at this sitcom-y family man who's trying to sleep with his daughter's best friend. But they're not making something avant-garde. They're making something crowd-pleasing at the same time. Yeah. And I don't think those ingredients work together.
Well, and I want to talk a little bit about the word normal, because like when you think about like what was the norm back then, obviously when I'm not saying like every 42-year-old man was lusting after a 16-year-old, but there are we have lost the sacred texts of the creepy late 90s in a lot of ways. Like, I don't know if you guys remember this, like they used to have, like, I remember watching like MTV, VH1, and they would have like countdowns on of like underage celebrities until they like days till they turn 18, and it's okay for us to want to have sex with them now. Like, which is hilarious. Like, just masking the fact that you clearly want to have sex with this girl right now at 16, but you can't say that in polite society until she's 18. So this was the kind of thing we were dealing with in 1999. And so it's objectively creepy. It was also something that I think a lot of people could recognize as something that was happening in society. And I do think, Noah, too, one of the other things that it really stands out to me now is like being a millennial, turning 18 in the 2008 recession, and then like everything after that being like, you have student loans and you can't afford anything now. So like start from that point, looking at a movie where these young boomers are able to make these flippant decisions with their lives of like, I'm going to quit my job. And like his wife obviously is like, okay, so I have to pay the mortgage now, right? Like they talk about finances a little bit, but then at one point Lester says his salary is like $60,000. And you're like, oh man, like how times have changed when the financial security of a family could just be thrown into upheaval in 1999. And it really didn't affect that much, you know, like it just seems like there were very different times, and these people were much more privileged than I think they realized at the time.
Well, the people in this movie, at least. Like, I don't know that that's...
Well, yeah, for sure.
You know, what it would actually be like in real life. My hunch is if you quit your job and start working fast food and then buy a really expensive classic sports car, you actually are going to have some severe financial problems. But the film is not interested in the realness of this at all. And I don't really mean that as a criticism. I have other criticisms of it, but I think not wanting to get into the economics of it is like, that's a justifiable decision in a way.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, like the movie is just focused on the transformation of Lester from a spineless coward to somebody who's, I've manned up and I'm taking control of my life. And he clearly isn't. But also, he got that 60 grand all paid out. He got his severance. He got health benefits. He can blow it all. And, you know, we're not looking at the 10-year plan, Bob.
Well, it's a good thing he got shot, because he would have had some serious bills to pay after that. He probably had a nice life insurance policy. Honestly, it worked out best for everybody.
Yeah.
For everybody. Oh man, guys, before we go to break, I do think it's time to talk about Kevin Spacey. Obviously, like, you know, let's put the disclaimer here. Like, we all know what Kevin Spacey is accused of doing. He, to this day, vehemently denies it. I'm pretty sure he's been found liable in court for doing it, but he's no longer criminally liable for it, so there's no consequences legally for him. He is persona non grata in Hollywood. We understand, right? And I'm sorry to be the, like, let's separate art from the artist guy right now, but, like, this is 1999. We were not aware of these allegations for another, you know, almost 20 years about the guy. We're going to talk about this performance, which gets him an Academy Award. And I say all that, Brad, to kind of cover my ass a little bit when I say this might be my favorite Kevin Spacey performance, because I just recently went to the theater to see Seven. I'd never seen it on the big screen. Holy shit. What a movie. What a picture.
Still have not seen Seven.
It is. Yeah, I mean, it's mind blowing, but seeing Kevin Spacey in this, it's one of those things where, like, sometimes you have to see an actor in very tonally different roles in really close succession to be reminded of what their range actually was. Because towards the end there, I think Spacey was just becoming a caricature of himself when he was doing the House of Cards stuff. But I've never seen him this loose in a movie. I've never seen him like this. I know for a fact that, like, Jack Lemmon is a big inspiration on him. This performance has Jack Lemmon written all over it, in the physicality, in the line deliveries. I could see Jack Lemmon apartment era Jack Lemmon being slotted into this movie and giving a very similar performance to what Spacey's trying to do here.
I like that a lot. That's a good take, Bob.
Thank you very much.
I like it a lot. I like it a lot too. But I don't totally agree with the performance working. I think Kevin Spacey's working really hard and he's making a lot of choices, and I respect that very much. But I don't know if it's his fault or the director's fault, but the tone of his performance does not always work for me. There's too much winking at the camera. There's too much like leaning forward and saying something in a quiet voice. Like, there's something contrived about his performance. There's something too mannered about it, too measured about it that I just don't like. And I will acknowledge he's got a tough job because he has to hold all of these tones basically in his performance. And it's really hard. And maybe no actor could do it, but I like him best when he is playing a bad guy. Like, I think if you look over his filmography, it's pretty clear that when he tries to play a
and
hero.
To be clear, you don't think he's a bad guy in this movie then? You think he's the good guy who you want to emulate.
Hero of the film.
Yeah.
If they pitched this character as just like a juvenile, sleazy, a-hole, I think he would be really good for it. But I think they like him too much. They like this character too much. And by they, I mean the filmmakers. But like when I look over Kevin Spacey's filmography, like my favorite performances of his are, Usual Suspects, obviously. I love him in LA Confidential. Like, I really love him in that movie. And it's kind of similar in that he's a sleazy guy who sort of becomes a goodish guy by the end of it. But he's not the main character. He gets to have his little journey off to the side while there is somebody who's actually righteous, the Ed Exley character played by Guy Pearce, who kind of holds the movie down. And I just think I just don't buy him in this role when all is said and done. He's too sleazy for me to really buy him as a suburban dad.
Well,
I think
part of the issue, and for me it worked because I felt like something clicked for me in the scene where Annette Bening catches him masturbating in bed next to her, and then they have the big argument, and he's talking about chafing the carrot, choking the bishop. Some really great metaphors there. That scene is played like both of their performances and the dialogue is played like an old Hollywood, not screwball comedy, but like that sort of like Rock Hudson, Doris Day era comedy where you have these like zingers, not quite one-liners, but it's all about the timing and it's about being a little bit more clever than people actually are. And I realized at that moment that like the comedy in this movie is pitched to like old Hollywood. And I kind of wonder if that is a little bit intentional because this movie is so much about like the facade of suburbia, the facade of like this 1950s American idyllic dream, to the point where like by the end of the movie, when all the masks are off and Annette Bening is just like weeping in the closet, grabbing his shirts and letting out this scream. And you finally get Spacey kind of letting down his guard and everything clicking for him and him realizing how juvenile he's been. I think that juxtaposition of tones is what makes the ending of the movie work. Because it's like everybody realizes how full of shit they've been the whole movie. And now finally it's like, oh, we're all maybe capable of having a real moment. And the tragedy of the movie is that it's too late for Kevin Spacey at that point. But
that's interesting. So you're saying they're all playing parts throughout the movie, which I think is true. And you're saying that they harness like kind of contrived a genre kind of energy to convey that to the audience. That's an interesting take. I haven't heard that before.
Look at you, Bob.
This is why I bring Noah on. My guy knows how to stroke an ego. He's very good at this.
No, honestly, Bob, I'm kind of with you. I think Spacey is brilliant in the role. And for me, it comes down to and I know this is the exact opposite of what Noah was saying. His sincerity in the role shines through, that he is 100% this completely burnt out, angry with his life, just like questioning what the F happened to my life. And you see it when he's trying to like seduce Annette Bening on the couch, and he's asking her like, what happened to us? Like, where'd we go? And like, that's his question he's asking throughout the whole movie, is like, when did I become who I am? When did you become who you are? And all of the things he does in response to that question feel authentic and real. And yes, like some of them are a little bit satirical in the way he gets his severance from his boss by, basically blackmailing them into giving him a good severance. Like there's elements of it that feel a little bit overwrought, but in the midst of all that, there's not a single thing that feels like and then he did this, and then he did that. Like it all feels like the story leads him to a place that makes sense for his character to do those things. And with a story underlying that, I think Spacey's performance really takes that character to the next level.
I've been thinking a lot about Hollywood lately. I can't remember what brought it up for me, but do you guys remember in like the early 2000s when a large cabal of celebrities got really into Kabbalah for a while? Like that was the religion of choice. Madonna was, I think, leading the charge on that. And it was kind of like the competing weird religion with Scientology for a while in Hollywood. And you kind of come to find out about like some of the tenets of the cults that celebrities are attached to in Hollywood. And you're just like, why are people like this? And then you kind of think about like, what is like Hollywood is just a giant sham where everybody's pretending to be somebody they aren't to get ahead. And I mean, I'm making generalizations at this point, but I thought about that watching this movie, that like when you live your life in a preposterous place, like your solutions to your problems are all going to be preposterous. And I think that this movie is just a collection of people who live in a preposterous place in the suburbia of the late 1990s and are trying really desperately hard to fix those problems by like doubling down and finding the most ludicrous ways to do so. Like Kevin Spacey's response is like, I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to pretend I don't care. I'm going to smoke a bunch of weed and basically become Randy Marsh from South Park for a while. And then like at the end of the movie, I'm going to realize this is no way to live. And Annette Bening does the same thing by like screwing this other guy, listening to these dumb self-help tapes, repeating mantras, and then realizing at the end of the movie, this is no way to live. And to your point, Brad, it's the kind of thing that is like the tried and true trope of the village idiot is the only sane one in the movie with Ricky. But I don't know, man. Like I know that it is heightened and it's a little bit satirical. It doesn't feel that far off to me to how people live their lives in these kind of weird, cloistered, secluded communities across the country.
Well, wait, what is so weird about this community? Like, I feel like this is a pretty normal, average community. I mean, they have a little more money than average, but they're not like rich either, as we know.
Sure.
What is so unusual about it too? I mean, the teenagers seem pretty normal and average to me, except for Ricky, who's like from another planet.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you're right. Maybe it's not the community itself, but it's the sort of rat race life that these people are being asked to live. I'm not sure.
Well,
but
now
I do
you sound
think
like a Gen Xer, not a millennial, I have to say.
You know what, Noah, that reminds me too, because you were talking about this being like a Gen X movie, because Sam Mendes is so young when he directs this, and he's very much a Gen X filmmaker. But I wonder sometimes, I'm wondering right now, because it just dawned on me, like, is this actually is part of the reason this movie doesn't seem to have a message to you because it's a Gen X filmmaker making a movie about boomers and millennials from a Gen X standpoint and failing to locate like the moral center of that generation? Brad, you said that this movie is like really permissive to everybody in the movie. Part of me wonders if it's because like that permissiveness or that sort of like cynical shrug is very emblematic of Gen X filmmakers. And he's trying really hard to like put that viewpoint onto Lester and onto the kids in the movie, but there's really no Gen X characters in the movie to kind of take that mantle on.
No, there really isn't, man.
Maybe, but I think Ricky Fitz sort of is the Gen X avatar in the movie. I mean, he's the filmmaker's avatar for sure, because he is a filmmaker in the movie, you know?
No.
But he's the one who's like, I don't have to live like either my father figure across the street or my actual father. I'm going to go live however the hell I want. I'm just going to sell weed and treat my jobs like they're meaningless and, just go to New York just because I can. I don't even need an education. I think that's kind of the Gen X attitude that's present in the film.
I will say, you talked about contrived characters before. The only character for me that feels really contrived is Ricky's mom.
What is the deal with her?
Like Ricky's dad is on the edge of being contrived, but I think Chris Cooper oh my God, dude, what a freaking performance. Chris Cooper is incredible. The mom, I'm sorry, but the idea that she's that far gone because of Chris Cooper's militaristic household is ridiculous to me. That, Ricky walks in, hey mom, this is my girlfriend. And she just stares for 5 solid seconds of radio silence. I'm like, okay.
Guys, here's the thing. This is why I love the movies though, because I agree with everything you say. It's a bad character. It doesn't make sense. Allison Janney is trying her best. And the reason that I don't care is because of the very last thing she says to her son when he's like, I'm going to go. And she's just she can't muster up anything else except just wear a raincoat. And she's kind of crying. And I'm like, oh, dude.
Yeah.
Nah. A+ performance. I don't care. Your character sucks, but you're doing your best, Allison Janney. This is why we nominate you for Oscars.
It's a great line.
It's the essence of parenting, right? Wear a raincoat. That's all you can
wear.
That's
a
all
raincoat.
You can wear.
Yeah.
Is that another euphemism?
Brad, I think it's time for us to hit pause here. We need to go drink some whiskey, and we have got a doozy of a whiskey today in Crown Royal, a whiskey I have not tried since season 1. What do you say we jump into that?
Let's get to it, man.
Hello, Finney. Did you think our story was over?
Just a grammar.
This Friday,
you're dead.
Dead is just a word.
Critics are saying Ethan Hawke is pure nightmare fuel.
Oh, Finney.
Discover the secret behind the mask.
What do you think happens when you die? It's time to find out.
Black Phone 2, only in theaters Friday. Rated R, under 17, not admitted without parent.
Purina believes no one should have to make the impossible choice between their own safety and their pets. But nearly half of domestic abuse survivors delay leaving because they can't bring their pets with them. Through the Purple Leash Project, Purina is helping create more pet-friendly domestic violence shelters so survivors and their pets can escape and heal together. Visit Purina.com/purple to learn more.
All right, so today we are checking out Crown Royal Blended Canadian Whiskey. Brad, it's been a while since we've had a Canadian whiskey on the show, and that is because, frankly, Canadian whiskey is not always that good. And I stand by it. I'm just going to say it. There are definitely good Canadian whiskeys out there, but part of what makes Canadian whiskey so inexpensive and not beloved by especially bourbon drinkers is that the Canadian whiskey process typically doesn't involve using new charred barrels the way that bourbon will. They typically age their whiskey in used barrels. So they're sourcing barrels from Ireland, from Scotland, from America, from bourbon and rye barrels, and they're aging their whiskey in that. And so it's much less potent because it's extracting less from the wood because these are second, third, fourth fill barrels. But you'll also see Canadian whiskey aged for a lot longer than you would see like a bourbon aged. I think at one point we may have had a 20-year Canadian whiskey on this podcast at one time.
And it still only costs like $40.
Right. Listen, when it gets up to that age level, you're getting a lot out of the wood, and it's not over oaked. And I actually find some really well-aged Canadian whiskeys to be quite good. That says nothing about what we're drinking here today, but just as a brief little primer on Canadian whiskey, that's why we don't have it that much.
I think it's pronounced primer, eh?
What's that all about? Am I right?
Dude, I'm kind of on the opposite end. Like cheap Canadian whiskey, I'm with you. Not great. Anything from their mid-range up, I have really enjoyed what comes out of Canada.
Absolutely.
The Great White North kind of knows what it's doing when it comes to that longer age stated whiskeys.
So the Crown Royal that we're drinking today, I believe, is at least 3 years old. I think it has to be at least 3 years old to not carry an age statement. I'm not entirely sure how old it is because this is like the most blended of blended whiskeys. I'm seeing in various places online that Crown Royal is made from a blend of up to 50 different whiskeys, even though that they claim that roughly 80% of their grain is sourced from Manitoba and the surrounding provinces. It's still such a huge blend that it's not going to have like a super distinct character. It will be probably very consistent from batch to batch because they're just blending so much whiskey here. It is 80 proof, so it barely qualifies to be sold in your local liquor store. I don't want to like knock this though, man. I have a tiny little bottle of Crown Royal. This cost me 99 cents. And if it tastes good, I'm going to say that it tastes good.
Yeah.
I don't want to be a snob about this. Like, it's cheap whiskey. We know what it is. And I think we're going to go into this tasting with that understanding.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. When I got onto the nose for this, it is not a complex whiskey, Bob, but the notes that I got were vanilla, cream soda, effervescent, just like a really pleasant, like sweet experience. It's a 7 out of 10 on the nose. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah. I'm going to give it a 6.5 on the nose because it smells like it's been watered down almost. Like it doesn't have any sort of ethanol that you have to push through to get any notes. I will say that like the second I poured it into my glass, the overwhelming note I got was honeydew, which is like, I don't typically get that on whiskey. Sometimes you'll get like pineapple or a little bit of some sort of a melon. This was like just straight honeydew. I thought it was really, really great. And then it became, like you said, cream soda and vanilla really took over for me. It almost reminds me of like a diet cream soda. Like there's a little bit of like an artificial note going on here. But again, to have just those 3 notes on like a, $20 bottle of whiskey is not bad. So I'm going to give it a 6.5 on the nose.
Yeah. I think the palate, it sticks in that vanilla. For me, it turned into like a vanilla bean kind of note. It is very much so like a yellow cake with white frosting. There was like a hint of a light brown sugary vibe going on that I think you're starting to get from the oak. It's a fine palate. I'll give it a 6.5 out of 10.
Yeah, it's really thin. It's really sweet. And then as you kick it to the back of your palate, I think the barley notes really take over. So it reminds me of drinking like a watered down scotch with like Splenda. Like there is like a really artificial sweet note to it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever made a Godfather cocktail, which is just at one point they were making it with equal parts scotch and amaretto. That's it. Now people are like, listen, amaretto's way too sweet. Don't use equal parts. But it reminds me of that if you get down to like the very bottom of your glass because you're drinking it on the rocks. There's just an overwhelming sort of like sickly sweet note that's kind of covering up that like blended scotch note for me. Not a huge fan of this one, Brad. I'm only going to give this a 5 out of 10 on the palate.
Okay. I mean, so for me on the finish, the sugariness turns into almost like a traditional cane sugar. The brown sugar kind of sticks around. And for me, the only bit of complexity that I had for this entire experience was on the finish. It almost had like a little bit of an ashy tobacco kind of finish that I actually kind of enjoyed because it gave it a little bit of something. It's still not great. I'll give it a 6.5 out of 10.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Like, if you're buying Crown Royal, you know what you're getting. However, I don't think I've ever said this before. Crown Royal's flavored whiskeys are among the best flavored whiskey. Like, the Crown Royal Apple and the Crown Royal Peach are like S-tier flavored whiskey.
Dude, people love that stuff.
Oh, it's really good. And I feel like because this already has that sort of artificial Splenda note in it for me, I'm like, let's just drink the flavored stuff. I think I actually enjoy that better than this. There's a note on the back of the palate into the finish that is that like ashy cigarette kind of note that is just kind of covered up in this like Splenda sweet and low, stevia type note for me. And it hangs on, and it makes it a little too sickly sweet for me. Once again, I'm going to give it a 5.5 on the finish here. And that takes my balance score, I guess, to just a 6. Like, I'm dealing with a 6, a 5, and a 5.5. So I think I got to come out to a 6 on the balance here, Brad.
I'll come out to a 7. I think that they hit everything they want. It falls off a little bit with the ashiness at the end, even though I kind of like that. It's a 7 out of 10 on balance. Value-wise, this is going to set you back. Right now, it's on sale for like $24.99. It is a $28 bottle of whiskey in the state of Ohio.
No.
Yeah.
No. I mean, I had to buy a bottle of Canadian Club 12 year for us to drink at some point this season. I can't remember what movie it's paired up with. And just looking at that bottle and how much darker that whiskey is because it's 12 years old. And I remember how good that was for about the same price as this, about $25. Brad, this is like $10 too expensive. This is a $15 bottle of whiskey if ever I've seen one. And at $25, I'm shocked at how negative I am about this whiskey, but like this is a 4.5 out of 10 on value.
Yeah, I'm with you, Bob. I don't think it's a great value. It's a 5 out of 10 on value for me. For $28, you should be getting a lot more than this. If this was like $18 to $21, it's a 7, 8 out of 10 on value. Like, it's a good, cheap whiskey. At $28, I'm expecting a little bit more. Honestly, for 99 cents, I'd say that's actually a decent price for a pour of this. So if you want a pour of Crown, don't go to the bar. Don't buy a whole bottle. Go buy yourself a 99-cent little plastic bottle of Crown Royal just to try it out, just to see what it's like neat.
You're coming out to what on this, Brad?
A 31.5.
I'm at a 27.5, so we're coming out to an average of a 29.5 or a 59 out of 100 on this, falling well short of our 35 out of 50 average that's needed to give this a recommendation. I'm not going to recommend. And I remember kind of liking this back in season 1. We will call it signs of growth and not signs of snobbery, but this one's not doing it for me, Brad.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like, I walked away from this thinking like, oh, that was like kind of a pleasant experience. It's generically sweet and has a tiny bit of complexity. It's okay, but it's Crown, man. I'm kind of with you. If you want to get Crown, go buy some peach or apple.
All right, man. On that note, what do you say we get back into talking about American Beauty?
Let's get to it.
Big news. Sephora is now on Uber Eats. So if you find yourself facing a beauty emergency, like needing a last-minute gift, or you're just out of your favorite mascara, again, don't panic. We got you. Order now and get $10 off on Sephora orders of $50 or more on the Uber Eats app. Order now. Offer ends October 30th. One order per customer. Additional terms apply. See app for availability. Delivery fees may apply.
Hey, the vibes are slipping. I think it's time to bring out the Velveeta shells and cheese. The holidays are a time to go all in on indulgence. Headline your meals with the rich, creamy meltiness of Velveeta shells and cheese and satisfy your holiday cravings like no other. Bring that main course energy to your side dish. Celebrate extra with Velveeta these holidays.
All right, that was Crown Royal, a Canadian whiskey to pair up with American Beauty. Brad, not our finest pairing, but you know, what do we know?
For a movie called American Beauty, we probably should have had an American whiskey, but
I think I was being a wise ass in season 1, and I did that on purpose.
100%. Also,
me?
No, never. You know, the old, like, that certainly was a movie and it had a score. Crown Royal, certainly a whiskey that was made from grains.
And it comes in a purple velvet bag, Brad.
I'm a big fan of the purple velvet bag, Bob.
Nothing says classy like purple velvet. All right, guys. On that note, Brad, it is time for us to get into our game for the week, which we call 2 Facts and a Falsehood.
Brad is gonna try to stump you, Bob, to alright and what is wrong. 2 Facts and a Falsehood.
2 Facts and a Falsehood is the part of the show where Brad presents me with 3 items as fact about the making of this movie, one of which is a complete lie. Brad, I have had a very up and down season with 2 Facts and a Falsehood, including being let down by some guests. So Noah, you're on the thinnest of ice, man. Just, you better be helping me out here today.
I am 1 and 2. I've been keeping score for myself. So this is big because I can get back to 500 with this one.
This is your chance, baby.
Yeah. This is not the guy I want trying to help me get out of a hole here. Brad, hit me with your 2 facts and a falsehood.
All right, guys. Fact number 1, the film's iconic red roses were actually silk props for most of the shoot because the fresh roses would often wilt too quickly under the lights and ruin continuity. Fact number 2, Director Sam Mendes designed the two girls' look to change over the course of the film, with Thora Birch gradually using less makeup and Mina Suvari gradually using more to emphasize the view of their shifting perceptions of themselves. Fact number 3, when Lester throws the asparagus, he was supposed to throw it at the floor. The reactions of Annette Bening and Thora Birch are genuine. Mendes kept the take because the startled expressions perfectly captured the tension of the scene.
The only thing that makes number 3 sound kind of fishy to me, and I didn't notice it until this time around because I got a pristine HD transfer on my Amazon Prime rental, is that when he throws that asparagus at the wall, the lemon slice sticks to the wall. And I'm like, that was on purpose. They paid some prop master to put a fake like gummy lemon on the wall. Hey, listen, if that was Providence sticking that lemon to the wall, then I'm wrong. But that just seems a little too pat and on the nose.
Well, and I got to be honest, I've not listened to every episode, but the Rose one, if Brad made that up, that is incredibly creative. Is he capable of coming up with something that creative?
That is for you to determine.
I was just going to tell you not to stroke his ego as well, and then you give him the backhand of like, is he even capable of that? It's like, oh, you corrected yourself. I don't need to.
We'll find out in a minute if that was a compliment or an insult. I'm not sure, but the rose thing, it would make sense to me that they wouldn't use real roses, but I don't know about the lights. That was shot outdoors. Like, I don't think the lights would be the problem, would they?
I don't know. Yeah, there's definitely some roses in like indoor vases and stuff as well. And, you know, the scene where the roses are falling from the ceiling, those could definitely be props.
Those
and at one point, there's CGI roses too.
That's what I was going to say. They looked like CGI. Yeah. I think I'm with you. I think I want to go with the asparagus. Also, someone could have gotten hurt. Like, if that was really improvised, like, you know where those shards are going to go. That's pretty dangerous stuff. Although this is a movie in which she tries to have sex with a 16-year-old. So, sure.
But that's in the movie.
We're all just living on the edge.
That's not, you know.
So wait, you sound really skeptical about the roses, but you're not choosing that as a falsehood?
No, I think it's real. I think that is the real one because I think that's And as you know, sincerely, no offense, Brad, but that is too wacky.
If there is ever a phrase to guarantee that the person is meaning offense.
I mean, does Brad know about silk, Bob? Like I wouldn't even think of silk. Where would that come from?
I'm gonna be honest with you, man. I've insulted Brad a lot over the course of this podcast. And I'm offended on his behalf, right? That's how insulting you're being to my co-host right now. Here's what I'm going to do for you, Brad. I'm going to choose number 3 as the falsehood with a slight hope that it is number 1 so that you can vindicate yourself against these attacks, Brad.
Oh, Bob, I appreciate you doing that because Noah. Number one was the falsehood.
Well done, sir. I stand deeply and profoundly corrected.
It is no problem, man.
Does Brad even know about silk?
I mean, I know he knows about the existence of silk.
It's a completely new textile to him.
It's so soft. Guys, I have not had this much fun with a 2 facts and a falsehood since Zach a few weeks ago told us that he was just casually reading Stephen Foster's songbook.
All right. Well, I think the key here to a fun 2 facts and a falsehood is to insult Brad. But the key to a loss for me is bringing guests on because I have been steered wildly wrong. Okay. I am taking L's left and right on this movie. Guys, I do want to get back into talking about this movie a little bit because Noah has already said, not a huge fan. Brad and I think, both still like this movie. And I want to talk a little bit about its place now. We touched on it a bit. It's the victim of a lot of Twitter poo-pooing. Noah, I'm wondering, is it possible to watch this movie free from the baggage of all of its free from the baggage of Kevin Spacey, free from the baggage of knowing that people hate it now, and I think free from a lot of the things we impose on it as 2025 viewers?
I think the answer to me is no. And there's 2 things that could have happened that would have allowed us to, and neither one of them happened. One is that Kevin Spacey could have simply gone away. And I think if Kevin Spacey went away, didn't make those weird ass videos every Christmas and didn't pop up every now and then talking about what an injustice his being, thrown out of Hollywood is, I'm not saying we would forgive him, but I think we would inherently soften on his performances a little bit. Just not having to think about and see him talking about this stuff all the time. That didn't happen. The other thing that didn't happen is Sam Mendes didn't only make good movies, because he has made some bad movies. And I think if he went on to just make good to great movies, if he had a better track record over the last 25 years, I think we might be more inclined to look back at this and say, okay, you know what? I'm going to look on the bright side. There's more to like. And I don't mean you guys, because I know you guys still like this movie, but just in general, the film Twitter, the film world, I think would be softer on this movie, because I don't think people are really, they're not really into Sam Mendes. There's not a lot of Mendes heads out there. I mean, I think we all agree he's made some good movies. He's also made some pretty bad movies. And I think there'd be a bit of a critical reappraisal if he were more revered or respected as a filmmaker today. And he really just kind of isn't.
And we've already kind of talked about the third thing. If this doesn't win Academy Award for Best Picture, you could win some acting awards, cinematography, all that. But if it doesn't win Best Picture, I think people come back to this and go like, oh yeah, this was pretty solid in those niche areas.
It's a perfect storm to have its reputation overturned over these years, because it won Best Picture and people don't like it. It beat out all these other incredible movies that we do love from that era. And the star of it is a known predator in a movie, in a character where he is a predator. Like that is really hard to let go of all that stuff.
100%.
You don't want Spacey playing the type, Noah?
Right? I could not have asked you to tee me up better for a conversation on Sam Mendes. And Brad, we kind of interrogated all this in our Skyfall episode, but people do not like Sam Mendes. And when I say people, I mean film Twitter, because they have nothing better to do than complain. But it always does. It makes me wonder sometimes about, like, I don't think we've fully gotten over auteur theory, because we see a filmmaker like Sam Mendes, who admittedly has made some bad movies that did not work. And because Sam Mendes doesn't seem to have like a singular theme or vision that he tries to tackle, he's just a guy who is technically proficient and makes beautiful looking movies that sometimes work and sometimes don't. I think he gets seen as a hack. And I want to be like very clear here. I don't think he's a hack. I think he makes good movies. But it seems like everyone is held to the standard of, like, if you're not Scorsese constantly making movies about religion and the rot at, you know, the corrupt heart of America, and you can't be that clear in every movie that you make, then you're not seen as a real filmmaker. And I do think that Mendes deserves a little bit more credit. This is his first movie. Like, this is his debut movie. He wins Best Director and Best Picture. And no matter what you think of whether those were deserved, like, I do think he should be taken a little more seriously as a force in Hollywood, you know, even if he squandered that in the years after it.
I mean, the way you were talking about him reminds me of how we talk about Rob Reiner. That, like, he doesn't have this vision of, you know, who he wants to be as a director. He just takes on a lot of different genres and different films and is a really proficient, adept director. And he works well with actors, and he's good behind the camera. And, like, that's all we expect from him. I think that the Academy Award and all this set us up to think of Sam as a possible next, right? Like, it's the LeBron syndrome for the last 15 years of, like, well, Zion Williamson is the next LeBron, and Ben Simmons is the next LeBron. And I've heard of 5-6 next LeBrons, and none of them have become the next LeBron. I feel like you kind of have a little bit of that here with Sam Mendes, where it's like, yeah, is he Ben Simmons bad? No, but is he LeBron good? Like, no, he's not that good
also,
either.
No. Yeah. Right.
Well, and it's like if one of those guys won an MVP and an NBA championship in their rookie year, you know, like those expectations would just be totally unreasonable. And that's definitely what we have here. There was almost a sense of, like, okay, you did this, now you have to show that it was merited. Like, how does that work? You can't show that it was merited with other films. Like, you won for that film at that time. So I think it's totally unfair and totally unreasonable. But we do have to, and you've mentioned it, but I feel like it bears repeating, he's made some bad movies. Like, that is part of the reason he is disliked, because he has made some bad movies and he's squandered some opportunities. He made Skyfall, which was phenomenal, and then he made Spectre, which was not. And I think people don't like him. I think they're also confused. I think people don't know where to put him. And when film Twitter gets confused about something, they normally get angry about it. They don't know how to deal with their confusion.
This is true.
Yeah.
I mean, if you take his top 3 movies, though, I think, yes, the batting average argument is not in his favor, right? But if you take his top 3 movies, whatever number 3 might be to you, like, you know, Skyfall, 1917, and American Beauty, or Road to Perdition, and if I told you, like, you could have a career directing movies where your 3 best movies are Skyfall, 1917, and American Beauty, you'd be like, sign me up for that all day. Those are we've done all 3 of those movies on the podcast, Brad.
I mean, let's be real. If you have 3 like produced by a major production studio movies, you're set for life. So I'll take any 3 movies.
Can you imagine? Do you remember that for 1917, that was the Parasite year? Like, can you imagine if somehow that he had beaten Parasite that year too? Like, how much everybody would hate him even more than they do now? And it almost happened. Like, he was favored to win Best Director, and 1917 was favored to win Best Picture. Like, pretty close.
It was
to the end. So he should be very happy that he did not win those Oscars.
another banger year, 2019 as well.
Oh, incredible.
Yeah. Marriage Story. I mean, just a freaking great.
The
great year
correlation that I'm seeing is Sam Mendes. Clearly.
He is what makes those years.
If he makes a movie, it's going to be a great year.
Guys, I think this is a perfect time to get into our final segment of the day, which we call Let's Make It a Double.
We're near the end of the episode, so thanks for listening to the Film and Whiskey Show. Let's pair another film with this one, even if it's a struggle. It's the final segment of the day, now let's make it a double.
Let's Make It a Double is the part of the show where we pick a movie to pair up with this one to make the perfect double feature. Guys, I'm going to go ahead and get mine out of the way first. We talked about Sam Mendes a lot, and Brad, you made a comparison to Rob Reiner. I actually think I see a little bit more vitriol directed towards Sam Mendes. And I think, Noah, you're right. It's part of the confusion. But the closest corollary to him that I can think of is the filmmaker Jason Reitman, who is a Nepo baby, to say the least, and really announced himself on the scene in independent cinema with this movie, Thank You for Smoking, and then follows that up with Juno, gets nominated for Best Picture for Juno, maybe Best Director as well. Mm-hmm. Then he does Up in the Air, another Best Picture nominee. He gets nominated for Best Director. He does Young Adult, a movie that I really like, and then immediately is like, let's make bad movies now. And that's all he does forever. And now he's making Ghostbusters sequels. And so, like, he made a movie in, I think, 2013 that is probably his most reviled movie, and a movie that I liked significantly more than most people, and it was called Men, Women, and Children. And that was a movie very much like American Beauty. It was a movie about these crisscrossing lives in American suburbia and kids who are addicted to pornography and, you know, grown-ups who are fighting and maybe divorcing each other. And it's all phrased with this omniscient narrator who I think is Emma Thompson is narrating that movie. And she's like quoting Carl Sagan talking about the tiny blue dot and how we all inhabit this. Or it's very similar to American Beauty in its kind of pomp and circumstance and what it's trying to do on a cosmic level. And watch that movie, which I don't hate, and then tell me that American Beauty is bad. And I think that every argument you have against this movie and Sam Mendes, it's like, no, there's this movie that you can put all of that onto. So for my scapegoat / double feature, I'm going with this and Men, Women, and Children.
Oh, man. Just to be clear, I don't despise this film.
I didn't think it was that bad, dude.
What a glowing recommendation. I'm going to pair this with a movie I absolutely love. And it's a movie that I think has somewhat similar of a premise, but it just moves in so much more hopeful of a direction. And I'm a very hopeful person. I like when a person is faced with their own death, them choosing the greater good, choosing a beautiful life.
You have picked this movie like 7 times now, Brad.
That's because more people need to see this freaking movie, Bob. Akira is one of the greatest films ever made, and everybody needs to watch it. And I feel like it has such a more impactful look on how humans actually thrive than American Beauty. And I like American Beauty. I think, Bob, what you said about everybody playing a character until the masks are shattered at the end of the film and they're all like, well, crap, like, what are we going to do now? I think there's something very important in that messaging. I just like Akira way more in what it is trying to tell you about the human experience.
There you go.
I love Akira a lot. And I love the English language remake that came out a couple years ago, Living. Like, I thought that was almost as good, which is an incredible.
Noah, that's because Bill Nighy is a freaking treasure.
I totally agree.
So good.
I love everything he does, and that is his best performance to me. I think he's really amazing in that movie. I am going. So I'm just thinking suburbs movies, you know, and there've been a lot. I love the idea that you had of pairing it with like a Rock Hudson movie. I think that would be really, really cool. But I am going to go with A Nightmare on Elm Street. I think this is another movie about teenagers in peril in the suburbs in a very different way. And I think that movie really kicked off like a whole modern era of suburbs movies. Like it was before the John Hughes movies started happening. And I honestly think like the themes of Nightmare on Elm Street are present in a lot of these movies. You know, a lot of the John Hughes movies. The Burbs is a movie that I love that I think owes a lot to Nightmare on Elm Street. I would make an interesting pairing with this, but just like, you know, like what the hell is happening on this street? Like that's a movie that that's a genre that I like. And I think this American Beauty falls into that genre too. And I actually think there are little hints of horror throughout the film. So I think those might be brought out a little more if you paired it with a true horror movie like Nightmare on Elm Street.
I mean, Noah, it's a movie about a teenage girl who gets caught in a creepy old man's dreams. Like it's the same movie. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I was about to say, are you calling Kevin Spacey Freddy Krueger?
They're neck and neck, biggest villains.
Oh, man. All right. So, Brad, I guess I didn't have a chance to pair this movie up with either E.T. or Elizabethtown today, so I had to go with Men, Women, and Children. I do think if you want to go the Sam Mendes route, he makes a movie in 2008 called Revolutionary Road, which is based on, no exaggeration, my favorite book I've ever read. The prose in that book is just, it is so biting and so cynical. And Mendes does not catch lightning in a bottle a second time with that movie. And I think part of the reason why is it just doesn't have the edge of this movie. And I'm kind of tipping into final scores here. Brad, I've come down a bit on this movie. Like, I don't think it's a perfect movie. I do think some things have gotten lost in the last 25 years. And part of that is like, I was wondering at some point, how creepy is Ricky in 2025 versus 1999? When he was only medium creepy, and now he's like exponentially creepier. And part of the reason for that is like he's filming people, and it's a very obvious metaphor of like the camera being the only impartial, objective observer of what's going on in the world, where everybody else is biased and viewing it through the lens of their own bullshit. But now, if you show somebody filming somebody, when we take videos in 2025, we take videos with the intention of that becoming for public consumption. Whereas in this movie, like he's only documenting it for himself to show the beauty in the world to himself. And I think that like overcoming that thing in his character where like people don't understand I film something for myself anymore. It's like I filmed this to put it on the internet, and he's filming girls getting naked and dads pumping iron naked and everything else. Like, so I think that there's just some things, and that led to the question I asked Noah before, like, can you even view this movie apart from all of its baggage today? I don't think you can. And I don't think the movie is bulletproof enough to overcome all those things. I still think it's a really good movie, but I'm going to come down to an 8.5 on this movie, Brad, from where I was in season 1.
Yeah, I did find myself throughout this viewing wondering, like, what does a world where everybody can take videos all the time do to the character of Ricky? Because he's not interesting. Honestly, he's not weird anymore, because if you make this movie set in 2025, he's just another human being. Like, there's nothing unique about him taking a camera to school. So I think that alone makes his character very fascinating in 2025. I'm with you, Bob. I think this is a really beautiful movie. It has a lot of great cinematography that we didn't talk about. But the camera work I think is really good. I like the acting. I like the ultimate message of the movie. I think it's really well done overall. I'm at an 8.5 as well.
You know, I wonder if in 2025, Ricky's thing would be that he like doesn't have a camera. Like if he doesn't have a phone, people would be like, "Oh my God, can you believe that guy doesn't have a phone?"
He just walks around with a journal writing down what we say. What a weirdo.
I just pictured him walking around with like an old, like 1860s Civil War era camera where he has to like take the cap off. And he's like, "Everybody hold still. I need to capture this.
Hold still for 5 minutes.
He gets under like a curtain to look through the viewfinder.
It is interesting though, because I think you could make, it wouldn't be as interesting visually, but like you could make that argument that he actually does see things more clearly because he's not using a phone, because he's not posting stuff on Instagram. So that would be an interesting way to do it if they were doing it in 2020 for the inevitable American Beauty remake that we all know is coming because this movie is so beloved. I'm going to put this at a 5 out of 10. I don't think it's terrible. You thought it would be higher? No. I thought I've been underselling it this whole time. I don't think it's terrible. I just don't think it's very good. I think it has a lot of problems. I actually think, and I never say this about movies because I don't watch TV, but I think it would be better as a TV series. Like Alan Ball made 6 Feet Under right after this. Yep. This was his next project. And a lot of the problems I have with this is that there is too much in it. It's too condensed. It has to rely on some, sitcom-y conventions and some moments from Kevin Spacey that are meant to sort of bring the audience along instead of delving deeper into his character. And I think if you had 8 episodes to tell this story, I think it would be better. And I think we could understand these characters more, and it wouldn't feel to me like it's trying to juggle tones that it really can't quite, keep all the balls in the air. I think they would be able to expand both the comedy and expand the drama, and I think it would work better. So that would be my tip. If I could go back 25 years, I'd say, guys, we're right on the cusp of the golden age of prestige TV. So just wait a year and then give Alan Ball a big check, HBO.
It's like, hey guys, here's my pitch. You could make this movie as is and win Best Picture and Best Director and Best Actor, or you could wait 5 years.
Make an HBO show and have nobody notice because they're all gushing about The Sopranos.
Exactly. You drive a hard bargain, sir. All right, so that does it for us today. We're coming out to an 8.5 on average for me and Brad, and Noah's score doesn't count because he's the guest. So thanks so much for joining us today, Noah. Now, you did mention that you were no longer doing film criticism as of right now. So fill us in a little bit on what you are working on and where we can find you.
Oh, sure. So I have pivoted. I'm making music now. It's something I did in my 20s. I put out an album in my 20s, and then I kind of moved away from it, and now I've moved back to it. So I've put out 2 albums this year, and I have a third that'll be out maybe by the time this comes up. It's singer-songwriter stuff. It's very pleasant. I think the songs are not bad. And you can find me on Bandcamp and Spotify and other places that I don't frequent, but I'm told the music is on there as well.
Man, just a real whore for self-promotion, aren't you? I think the songs are not bad. Quote unquote, Noah Gittell.
I think that
you know what? Honestly, I will say this. We hung out like a year ago. You came to visit Cleveland for a while, and we went and had a couple drinks, and you were like, I'm going to go to an open mic. And I was like, you know what, bud? You do what you need to do, right? And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to come listen to you at an open mic. And then you started posting clips of you and your songs that you've written. First of all, you have a beautiful voice. Like, you are a legitimately good singer and songwriter. And I find that your music is like unironically, unabashedly very, very good and worth checking out. So if he'll be too humble to say it, I'll say it for him. Check out Noah's music, guys.
Well, I set you up perfectly. My plan came to fruition here. Thank you so very much. That really does mean a lot. And I know you mean it because we were talking off air and you said you want to come to an open mic soon and hear me play. So we'll do that. And maybe we'll live stream it for your audience.
Based on how Two Facts and a Falsehood went, I have so many thoughts on your musical capabilities, but I'm just, I'm going to keep them to myself here.
Do you even know what a melody is?
Just know that if he writes a song about silk now, Brad, that it was inspired by you. That's all we know. All right, guys, that does it for us here on Film and Whiskey today. We'll be back next week talking about a movie that we probably should have a moderator for. It's 1977's Star Wars, Episode 4, A New Hope. One of Brad's favorite movies of all time. So join us as we debate that one again next week. But until then, I'm Bob Book.
I'm Brad G.
And we'll see you next time.